What's up, everyone? Welcome back to If Plants Could Talk. This is Garrett. I'm your host. This conversation took place on July 7th, 2022, with my very special guest, Joe Patitucci of Plant Wave. Joe is the founder of this device, this company that offers this wonderful device that translates frequencies. And I'm not sure I quite understand the science behind it, to be honest, or that anyone does. However, it translates the frequency coming from a plant into sound, which is wonderful. He has all these really cool videos. He's on YouTube, tons of cool videos of different harmonies and sounds. For example, meditations that can be used in practice, different types of sound baths, even. There's one I saw of him going into nature, like in Hawaii. I'm not going to do it justice trying to explain it to you guys, but Plant Wave is awesome. Mine's on the way, and I cannot wait to hook it up and show you guys. I want to take a moment to tell you guys about my sponsors. If you scroll down into the description of this episode, you will find links to Methuselah Nursery located in Long Beach, California, Green Touch Nursery located in Bellflower, California. Make sure to stop and check out their live auctions every Wednesday. And also this coming weekend, I believe there is an event, a sunset plant gathering. If you would like to join us, for those of us that are local, also real mushrooms. If you're interested in supplementing mushrooms and all the great health benefits that can come with supplementing mushrooms, definitely click on the link in the description of this episode. And Plantly, big shout out to plantly.io right here. Plantly, their stickers are up behind me. This is where I offer plants for sale and where many amazing vendors are offering all kinds of beautiful plants, everything from tropicals to house plants and cactus and succulents galore. So definitely, if you're interested in becoming a vendor, there's a link. I provided a link in the description of this episode to become a vendor, or even if you just want to shop the marketplace, you can download the Plantly app on Android or iOS, or type in plantly.io in your web browser. All right, without any further ado, here is Joe. Joe Patitucci, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Uh, Honestly, I've only worn a button-up shirt for one other guest, so if that says anything, that's how excited I am to have you. I've been looking very closely into your work, watching all your videos. I subscribed and turned on notifications, and what you're doing is incredible. So thank you for the service that you're providing to the plant community and for this awesome device. I can't wait to hear about it, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun just, following the passion, and I'm grateful to have so many folks out there like you and everyone else that are just supporting this and making this so it's like my life. So,
Yeah, how did all this get started?
oh yeah, it started over 10 years ago.
Wow.
I started a record label, and the idea behind the record label is I was always making music by going out into nature and connecting to the feeling of a place.
Hmm.
And I would record the sounds of a place, and then I would go back into the studio and listen to those sounds and kind of write music from like this connection to the feeling of that place. Um, and yeah, like I was releasing these albums on these pieces of seed paper, like these, it was album art that had seeds embedded in it, and you could take this and plant it and it would grow into flowers. So that was,
What?
yeah. So it kind of started there. That was originally like I started my company as a record label. Um, but then I started to think about like how to, you know, if I'm going out into nature, I'm connecting to this feeling. And like, I felt like nature was kind of like speaking through me musically.
Yes.
And yeah, so I started to think about how could I have that happen like more directly without it necessarily having to come through my body, but how could I have that like expressed directly
Uh-huh.
from the plants. So yeah, there's some cool stuff out there, like the book The Secret Life of Plants, and there are these really interesting experiments that were being done by like Cleve Baxter, who's like an FBI polygraph expert who was hooking up plants to lie detectors and seeing that they were
Oh.
responding to certain things that were happening. Um, so we realized we could use that same technology and translate the wave from the graph that's coming off of the circuit, and we could translate that into pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so when we connected that to a synthesizer for the first time, that pretty much changed my life.
Can I ask you what type of music were you originally making? Is there some electronic music in your past?
Yeah, it was mostly like kind of more ambient, electronic,
Cool.
kind of pastoral. Before that, I was in bands and all of that stuff, but I just got tired of like carrying around gear and coordinating with like four other humans and their significant others. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm just gonna go solo and work on a laptop. But yeah, so it started there, and then yeah, it just brought me into this place where, well, all of nature is my bandmate now.
Do you mind explaining some of the science behind it? Were there studies that inspired this? Because I remember hearing about it, probably 10 years ago, and it was like the first sounds from a plant or whatever. How does that
Sure.
work exactly?
Yeah. So what we do is it's called sonification. So you can think of this as like, like a weather map is visualization. So you're taking like weather data and you're translating that into something that's visual that you can see, and you're like, oh, these clouds are green and these clouds are red, and
Mm-hmm.
that has a language behind it. So similarly, we're doing the same thing except with plants, and we're translating into sound. And the way it works is we're measuring the connection between 2 points in a plant. And that's largely telling us how much water there is between the 2 points and how much that water is varying. So, as a plant is moving chloroplasts around, there's a change in the amount of water between those 2 points. So, the change over time is a wave, and then we just translate the wave into a pitch, and
Mm-hmm.
then we run the pitch message into different instruments. So some people might be familiar with MIDI,
Yeah.
or if anybody's used like GarageBand or anything like that. We're basically translating the wave from the plant into MIDI, and
Mm-hmm.
then anybody that's using a plant wave, you can select which instruments those notes are represented on. And then we have different instruments that some are kind of more for meditation or relaxation. Some are designed more to be like a very like direct translation of exactly what's going on in the plant, so you can get like super clear on the shifts that are happening.
I want to make sure I understand. So the amount of water within that particular part of the plant is what it is. That's what this frequency and sound that you're creating is dependent on that.
Yeah, it's dependent on the variation in the amount of water in that point. So
How
you can think of
complex.
like, yeah, right. So you can think of like, okay, you can think there's like a sensor here and there's a sensor here. And there's
Uh-huh.
like an amount of water that's between the two because it's like a living being. But that living being is also moving water around through a system. So
Right.
the amount of water between these 2 points is varying like super slightly. And so we're
Mm.
measuring that variance and translating that. We're graphing it as a wave and then running that into these pitches. So you can, every time you hear a new note, that is a sign that a change happened in the plant.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
And I love how many like different areas it can go into. It can really like, spark the interest of a scientific person, but at the same time you have the heart chakra video. I was listening to that on my way home from work today.
Mm,
I work at Whole Foods, man, and I'm like driving home and I was listening to the heart chakra. And my favorite one was the Jungle Brook. I think I
mm.
like that one the most. And then I had a question for you too. I was like gonna be like, I wonder if fungus makes sounds, but then I looked through your videos. Sure enough, they do. Like, how does that differ between the plant kingdom and the fungus kingdom?
Yeah, that one is a little bit, I don't have a full understanding on it
Does
yet.
anyone?
No, I have a lot less of an understanding of that. I mean, we designed Plant Wave for plants
Hmm.
specifically to kind of read these changes that are happening in plants. These changes are obviously also happening on mushrooms. It's less clear if it's like if there's if it's because water is moving around in the mushrooms or if there's some other kind of noise we're picking up. Like, again, we didn't develop the sensor specifically for mushrooms. So
Mhm.
I am not sure exactly what is happening there, but it's really cool. And I like listening to anything really.
I love it. Yeah, I was when I was listening to the Jungle Brook one, I was like, all I need is a little thump, thump, throw a little kick in there, and I'll be dancing. Like it's really cool, all the different frequencies and levels of sound, and watching you like move the plant and that how that affects it. So interesting, man. Cool stuff, dude.
Yeah, I did one in thank you. I did one in Joshua Tree just a couple weeks ago and designed some sounds for that that kind of like gave me a feeling of being in the desert. And it has almost like a dance beat to it.
Does
It's
it?
really wild. I would definitely recommend checking it out.
So you can throw a kick in there. Is there like is there something like let's say there's a sound, a frequency that's coming off the plant that's consistent enough to be like a four to the floor kick? Is there something like that?
Yeah,
It's like thump thump thump.
yeah, so you can give the plant whatever instrument you want to have it play. You just don't really have too much control
Right.
over how they play it. So I don't know how many plants would do like a four on the floor kick. There are ways that you could scale the data so it would automatically do that, but then at that point you're not getting to hear like all of the crazy variation that the plant's doing.
The authentic sound that it's creating.
Yeah, just like yeah, I like having a little bit more detail to the patterns, but at the same time, I mean, I've run a plant through a drum machine and it's pretty cool.
Man, that's awesome. So I wanted to ask about trees too. I didn't. I might not have seen every video, but is there a way to tap into the trees as well?
Yeah, so what's great about PlanWave is that it works via Bluetooth, so you can connect it to leaves or to the needles on trees, and as long as you're willing to climb it and get it up on that branch, then you can have it streamed to your phone. So yeah, I have a few videos out there. Like there's one of like a giant or of a plant next to a giant sequoia. I have a redwood, like a redwood sapling that I listen to. I've done like oak trees, and I'm actually going out to Alaska in a couple weeks
Wow.
to do some work out there. So old growth forest, which is gonna be really neat.
That's beautiful. I would love to hear if there's a way to tap into Methuselah. Are you familiar with Methuselah? It's like the oldest tree on the planet, or was at one point. I think they found a different one. I think it's in the bristlecone. It's a bristlecone
Yeah,
pine.
it's like right near Death Valley, right? It's just like it's right over there in like Central California ish.
Thousands of years old. I don't, it doesn't have any
Yeah.
leaves though. It's not
Yeah, it
pushing
has,
any
I think it
leaves.
has, yeah, it has like a few little things. Yeah, I've wanted to check it out. I wanted to check it out when I went to Sequoia because it's right on the other side of the mountain. It's crazy, right? Because you have like within like 100 miles of each other, you have like the largest tree in the world and then the oldest known tree in the world.
Right.
They're all just like right there in California. I really do want to check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something majestic about trees. They have like wisdom and knowledge, I feel like, because they've just existed for so long.
Yeah, they have a special kind of patience too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw the happy plant versus sad plant. Do you mind expanding on that at all? Like, how does that differ in sound?
Sure. Yeah, I was in Thailand a few years ago and I saw kind of like a couple plants. Like one was very healthy and thriving and the other one was being eaten by a little spider or something and
Uh
it
huh.
didn't look very healthy. Yeah, and it was pretty clear that the healthier plant, just produced a lot more, rich patterns. There's just like a lot more
Mm.
going on, a lot more melodically happening. Whereas the, injured plant was maybe just producing one or two notes.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's something that's pretty common that we'll see. For instance, I was on a trip one time and I had roommates and they were like looking after my plants and I had my plants broadcasting on a website called Plants FM. And so the plants are just broadcasting all the time. And I was like, yeah, I was like in Asia, and I was like, listening to Plants FM, and I was like, man, this plant's just like playing one note. Like, why has it been playing one note? And I realized it was like 3 a.m. where the plant was. And I was like, oh, maybe it's just, maybe it's just late at night. So sometimes they kind of go a little bit more dormant. And then I messaged my roommate a couple days later. I'm like, hey man, like the peace lily's just playing one note. Like, how are the plants? Are they doing all right? And he's like, yeah, man, I've been watering. They're doing great. And I was like, okay, I guess. And I was like, could you send me a photo? Right. And he sent me a photo, and we all know what a peace lily looks like when it's happy. It's
Sure.
kind of like, it's got the white flower. It's like, its leaves are like probably up at a 45 to 60-degree angle, kind of. Yeah, and he sent me the photo, and it was just, it was alive. It was just not thriving. And I think he was watering it like it was a snake plant, but it's like,
Uh,
a peace lily needs a lot of water. And yeah, so that was a lesson for my roommate on like the difference between survival and thrival. And it was also a message for me of like, oh wow, yeah, you can, like, I know what a healthy plant sounds like versus when a plant is like super underwatered, especially after I develop a relationship with it by listening to it over months or whatever.
you are probably one of very few people that can say that.
Yeah, I guess
distinguish
so.
distinguish, and I mean, aside from the supporters now of your device, I do want to hear about how did plants come into your life, and what has this journey been like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny because other than having like, when I started this, I lived in Philadelphia, and I just had like a house and like a tiny little herb garden thing in the back. That was about it. I didn't have
Hmm.
any house plants until I started making music with plants. So that was pretty cool. So it's like, I started playing with this idea, and then I did an installation, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, where are all these plants going after the installation? It's like, oh, I guess home. And then I basically built this, like, the art installation that I had in museums was basically in my living room. And then that just kind of got bigger and bigger. And yeah, just like it kind of it just grew until, all of a sudden you have like 60 plants or whatever. And yeah, so I think for me, what's been cool about that journey is that, especially early on, I started to notice like, oh, there might be some times where I forgot to water them as much as they need to be watered, or I overwater them, or these different things. And I might I might just, walk downstairs and just see that the plant's drooping a little bit. And it's, oh, wow, yeah, I haven't watered it. And that's also a prompt for me too, for like my own self-care.
Right.
So I find that, like, this is like a common thing where, like, once you start caring for another being, like, you realize how much you have to care for yourself to care for the other being.
Hmm.
So I've found that, yeah, that taking care of plants has been super healing, and like a mode for personal growth as well.
That's incredible. It's like
Yeah.
almost like a mood tracker or something, some
Hmm.
type of metaphorical clock or something, Yeah, because when I check in with myself, I can look around at my plants and realize, oh, yeah, I'm not doing enough for me right now,
Hmm.
and it manifests in the plants for sure. That's so beautiful
Totally.
to hear, man. I love that.
Yeah.
Cool. So, of all these wonderful places that you've been having the opportunity to explore, how is do you have a favorite in type of plant, or let's say tropics versus arid? I don't know. What's that been like? The difference between these places and the pitches that you're finding, sounds that you're finding.
Yeah. To me, the kind of standbys for me are like tropical plants. I think tropical plants that live under the canopy, they're really common as house plants too, right? Like, so like monstera, or bird of paradise, or just these kinds of plants. tend to be quite active. They're
Hmm.
they're moving water around all the time. They're just like, they're holding a lot of water. So those tend to be quite active versus like a palm, or, for instance, when I was out in Joshua Tree, I had to really go and try and listen to a few of them to find one that was more active. But yeah, I tend to, really enjoy tropical plants, below the canopy. Those are just there's a lot of life there.
That makes sense. They're definitely, and they have so much vibrance. I mean, I'm thinking of an orchid right now, but
Hmm.
birds of paradise, so visually stimulating. It would only make sense that they're also creating this complex, harmonious sound.
Yeah, I mean, their beauty is one expression of how alive they are, right? And the
Yeah.
music can also be this beautiful expression of that as well.
So has this all changed your perspective on like the plant kingdom and like, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's cool. When I started doing this, I was reading this book called Holographic Universe,
Mm-hmm.
that was basically about how it's kind of like consciousness being more all pervading. I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of humans, especially like kind of in Western cultures, think that like consciousness requires a brain and that it like comes from here.
Right.
Um, but once I started to see the brain as like a receptor or a filter for this consciousness that exists everywhere, uh,
Mm.
that changed a lot. And so I see I see plants as, conscious beings, that, their consciousness is tuned for their specific way of survival, and their consciousness is like super elegant, right? It's like
Yes.
ground into the earth and grow towards light. Like those are like the two basic things. Some of them might put off like different chemicals if another one's being attacked or things like that. But they have this really cool intelligence. So for me, it's like listening to plants and kind of stepping into this world as a way of like stepping out of my own head and my own like constraints of what I think reality is.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to have this really cool window into, like, when I'm listening to plants, I'm in my world, but then I'm also like getting this window into the plants world. And I'm getting this like plants are able to perceive or basically process light that's outside of what we can perceive.
Mm.
Right. So now, if I'm listening to a plant, I'm also receiving information that's outside of my field of perception just by
Yeah.
listening and being with these other beings. So that to me is just like super enriching, and it's a very like great like de-stress tool, because I'm just
Right.
like in wonder. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you argue that they respond to our energy as well? Have you seen that? Without touching them, without
Sure.
watering them.
Yep. Yeah, I've definitely experienced that. And I don't know if I would be doing this if I didn't experience that. That's like a big part of what excites me about this. I can give a couple examples.
Please.
Yeah, the first time I connected a plant to first time I connected to a plant, I was working with my engineer, and I remember hearing it start to play these instruments, and I wasn't sure if my engineer was doing a test or something. So I turned to him. I'm like, "Oh, is that the plant?" And he was like, and he nodded. And right when he nodded, I felt this like rush of excitement. And in that moment of excitement, the plant just like completely shifted to like another octave, and it turned this like the velocity in the wave changed a lot, so it actually turns knobs and things. So
No.
I just like, whoa, and it was like, whoa, and then I just like looked at him and I was like, wait, did that just respond to me? He was like, dude, it's in the data. Like, I don't know, but like that, I saw that happen. Um, and I thought that might have been an anomaly. And then, first time I had this in a museum, there was like like a 9-year-old girl named Melody, of course,
Wow.
walks up to a plant and just starts like holding her hands up, like exchanging energy with the plant. And then she turns to her mom and she's like, Mom, look, all you have to do is think light coming through your hands and the plant will sing for you.
No
And I was
way.
like, whoa, like there's this like energetic connection, and there's this
Yeah.
like deeply intuitive energetic connection that like humans have. And then that just kept happening, right? And so during this like 3 day installation, I would be sitting there reading, and also someone would walk into the room. They wouldn't touch any of the plants, and the music would just shift. And I was like, "Whoa, what's
Wow.
going on? Who's that?" And I would get up and I'd walk over to the person and say, "Like, this might sound crazy, but I designed this, and the plants clearly responded differently when you walked into the room." And each time I was surprised these people didn't think I was crazy. They actually were just like, oh, yeah, that makes total sense. I'm an energy healer,
Wow.
or like I'm a botanist, or I'm a florist, or I'm a Reiki master. So
Uh-huh.
people with like super in tune with these like subtle forms of energy,
Mm-hmm.
people that are super attuned to plants, seem to have a big effect. Um, and yeah, I've just continued to see that play out over time through meditation. You know, I lead meditation and breath work with plants, and we use that as a prompt. Those shifts in the plants are a prompt for us to tune into what's shifting in ourselves, what's shifting in our own energy as we're breathing or meditating.
That's fantastic. Oh man. My mind is blown right now. I feel like you've opened a doorway into a whole new world for me now. I'm gonna be obsessed.
Yeah, it's definitely like a more connected world, you know. It like
Yeah.
to me it just like I think things make a lot more sense now. I'm just like, oh yeah, like everything's doing its thing, and it's we're all just in this together. We're floating around on this big rock through space, and we're all like doing our best to survive and thrive, and like we can learn a lot from each other, and we can learn to listen. I think is like the biggest thing here.
Yeah, man. Well, when you said like plants are so connected to the earth with their roots going into the ground, all I could think was I just wish human beings were more like plants, you know, with
Well,
the
yo,
grounding
yeah.
source.
Well, we are, right? I mean, like we're made of earth stuff. Like I don't
Sure.
know, like I'm not a synthetically made human. I don't think that could exist, right? So like it's really just we are. It's whether or not we recognize it, right? Like
Right.
for so much of our evolution we didn't wear shoes, and like so we were always connected to the earth. We are like a part of this earth. We're like we're nodes on this earth that have
Mm.
sprung from this being, right? It's like some people have this illusion that like, oh, there is humanity and there is nature, and we are
Right.
separate from it. And it's like, well, what happens when you have that kind of worldview? Well, you can do really cool stuff in some ways. You can develop like technologies, and like you can you can master the domain of nature, quote unquote, or like at least think you are. And then, but at the same time, you're super stressed and you're having heart disease and this and that. And it's like, why? Well, because we're ignoring part of who we are as human
Mm.
beings, which is we're disconnecting ourselves from ourselves. And that inflames the body, that like causes a lot of yeah, it causes a lot of pain. So yeah, I mean, we are as connected to the earth as plants. It's just up to us of whether we like recognize that and cultivate that.
Yeah, I would argue that some of the destruction of nature is because of that exact thing that you're talking about, that disconnect, right? And
Yeah.
I've heard other guests of mine bring this notion of plant blind, that like many human beings are plant blind, and they don't stop to smell the flowers. They don't stop and see the trees. And then many of them, like one day, people I've spoken to, one day woke up to it,
Mm.
and suddenly they saw everything, and they felt so connected to these plants, and they're identifying plants as they're driving by. And I just think it's so fascinating to see that, and it gives me hope that it's never too late for these individuals that may be quote unquote plant blind or disconnected from nature.
Totally. I mean, yeah, it's there. It's there for us. Yeah, I think a lot of people might see plants as just as like things or objects or something.
House decorations.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's you know everything here is here for a reason. It's all everything here can be an ally. Everything on Earth can be an ally or a messenger in its own way if we allow it. And so, to me, it's just about how can we open up our perception to like more appreciation, more acknowledgement of other living beings as living beings that are important. And, how does that affect our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with other people? There's a lot of richness there available to us.
Now, is this part of Plant Wave's mission as well?
Yeah, I mean, Plant Wave is really, I actually just say like, Plant Wave is like about connecting to the earth and opening to love. It's
Yeah.
really, that's that's what it is. I mean, it's funny that I never in my life thought I would ever make a hardware device. It was never in my plan to do it. The reason I did it was because I realized that it was actually like a service to humanity, and that this was
Yes.
a way of allowing people to experience uh, experience life in a new way, and also allowing people that already experience life in that way to be able to share that with other people.
Yes.
There are a lot of people that have that deep connection to nature, that deep connection to plants, but it's hard to communicate that. And like
Mm-hmm.
some people might, it seems like it's, they might be like
Woo
seen as
woo.
crazy or woo, yeah, or all
Yeah.
these things, but it's like through, like, if you can actually like show your friend, like, no, not only is this like not only am I not crazy, there's like a product and community around this that's based on actual like scientific practice that that we can use to illuminate this whole other realm.
Wow. So this is where science and spirituality meet. You've found a
Totally.
way. You've found a way to connect those two things, which are often, very separate. Um, I love that, and I had another thought on that. I can't remember what it was, but I would love to talk about the device. Oh, no, lost it. So the device itself. Let's say somebody's interested. You've piqued their interest, and yeah, what's that all about?
Yeah, the device, you can get it at plantwave.com. And so the device is, oh, I have one. I have one
Please.
here. It's like, it's this big, it fits in the palm of your hand. And it, you connect it. It has like little wires. You connect these two wires to a plant's leaves. And then you pair the device to your phone.
Hmm.
And we have an app that has instruments that we built for plants to play. So you can just listen via headphones, or stream it to a Bluetooth speaker, or plug it into a sound system. However you want to listen to your plants, you can listen. Just really just plug and play. Um, and then there are other cool things like you can record the plants right on your phone, so you can listen to them later, or you can even broadcast your plants
No.
so that your friends can listen. And anybody that's listening can, even if you don't have a plant wave, if you want to check it out, if you want to like check out the app, you can just go on the Plant Wave app and listen to other people's plants broadcasting right from there.
Wow, really are like bringing a community together around it too, man. That's cool. And I remembered what my thought was. It's apparent to me that this is your calling and that like you're part of your purpose and like it
Sure.
sits well with your soul and you are indeed doing a service. So like thank you, man. For real.
Oh, hey, my pleasure. And this is just like one of the first steps. What we're doing is we're building a bridge from people's phones and the internet and all that stuff back into connection with nature and
Yes.
back into connection with the body. And so right now, the Plant Wave app and like we have patents around this like sound technology that we built. Right now we're using that on plants, and the bigger picture for us as well is we started doing some research on making meditation music from real-time heart data, and like exercise music that can also tell you a story of what's going on in your body in real time and inspire you to like hit fitness goals and all these other things. So like it's kind of like we're making the soundtrack to your life, like we're building the soundtrack to your life. And just like life on earth, we're starting with plants. We start with plants and
Yes.
then we move up, or not even up, we just move around that circle
Sure.
to get to humans in the heart.
I'm curious about these guys here. I realize that I don't have any moisture in them, but I wonder if there's a way, or perhaps that somewhere down the line that we can tap into the crystals and see what they have to say.
Sure, I'm sure there is. I'm not super familiar with all of the ins and outs of how crystals work. I mean, we wouldn't be having this conversation without crystals pulsing in our laptops and everything else.
Right.
These are obviously these crystals obviously have like electrical properties, and they have their own kind of timed rhythms to them as well. I'm not as familiar with exactly how to get that signal, but I mean, I know it exists, because if it didn't, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, I've never really stopped to think about that, but you're right. They do use all kinds of crystals in those little devices, man.
Yeah, I mean, even our device has, I believe it has like a quartz crystal in it, as
Wow.
that's a timer. Like
No.
they're time. Quartz crystals are used for timing. I think it has to do with like how fast it takes for light to get from like to bounce through it, and if you know the size of it, then you can have that in some way related to time, because you know the speed of light and all these things.
Speaking
Yeah.
of light, and so now that you have me thinking about all this, I'm certainly going to obtain a plant wave, and I would like to see it also translate into, which I'm sure you've done, lighting, like
Sure.
disco lights, dance lights, right?
Yeah,
So you can not only
totally.
have the sound, but now you also have the visual.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a thing for us that we're working on is we want to get PlantWave integrated into a lot more of like the smart home kits, like Alexa or Google Home and Apple HomeKit and all these things. And once you do that, you can start to have the plants controlling things like your lights. So you can
No,
have I've done this before too, and
I'm sure.
um, and I know a lot of these kind of lighting systems you can have them so they respond to sound, and
Hmm.
that's cool. So you could make it so that the plant's controlling the sound, and then the lights are being controlled by the sound. But the purest expression of this is when like the lights and the music are both controlled by like the same data source. That's
Yeah.
where it just gets like super deep. So yeah, we do that for some of our installations. And yeah, I mean, eventually you'll be able to have that in your home, and you'll just like go into an immersive zone, just chilling out with your plants.
Dude, sounds like a dream come true.
Of course.
Yeah, man. Have you like written any books, or is there? What else do you do? What else are you doing?
No books yet. I feel
I
like there's
see it in your
some,
future.
yeah, it keeps coming up. I know it'll happen. A really fun project I have coming up this summer is we're working on this film project where we are going and finding these really rare plants. And we're putting together a film series on people that are, stewards of these very rare plants, like people that are protecting these, um, ecological zones that are endangered. And we're really looking to highlight that through storytelling and then bring that emotional connection to the story and the plant to the people by listening to the plants. So we're working on this. I'm going to Alaska in a few weeks, and we're going to do the first episode, and then we're doing some on native grasses and in other parts of the world. So that's something that I have coming up that I'm really looking forward to.
Protect the plants at all costs, man. I'm with you with that. I'd like to see more of that. These stewards of the rare plants, as you said. Uh, we have a big problem with that. I mean, I'm very involved in like the cactus community, but I know it's happening in all of the different
Yeah.
sectors of the plants.
Yeah. Have you checked out have you checked out this guy Kyle Liebarger on TikTok?
I
I think
haven't.
his handle I think is Native Plant Talk.
Okay. I think I
Uh
might have heard of this.
yeah, I would definitely recommend checking it out. He's based in like Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
and he comes across as more of like Alabama hunter dude.
Mm-hmm.
But turns out Alabama hunter dudes really care about native plants because the native plants are what what the deer and
Mm.
everything feed off of, or the insects. Um and so what he highlights is like how so much of the US we've like taken out all of this native habitat and
Mm-hmm.
these like quote unquote weeds,
Right.
and we've just like put down turf and non-native grasses, um, and how much that affects insect populations, which affects bird populations, which just kind of affects that affects how many seeds are being distributed around and what other plants are coming up. So yeah, it's a really important issue for us to look at this whole like, I need a green lawn with like 2-inch tall grass.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's a very new phenomenon, and if we keep
Yes.
going in that direction, that's going to be very destructive. It already has been.
Yeah, especially here in California where we have this horrible drought constantly, and
Yeah.
it's not just here. I know it's all over the place. Have you ever heard of Crime Pays but Botany Doesn't, Joey Santor?
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
His
Yeah.
motto is "Kill your fucking lawn." That's what his.
Kill
There's a
your
shirt that
lawn.
says "Kill your lawn," but when he says it, he says "Kill your fucking lawn." Yeah, that guy's doing fantastic work. I had him on once, and I'm gonna do another one with him soon. We're planning like a presentation based collaboration, which is also something I would like to present to you. We can talk about it off the air, though.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll wait. So where can everyone find the Plant Wave? Plantwave.com, right?
Plantwave can be found at plantwave.com. Exactly. And
Uh,
check us out on Instagram. We're really active there with lots of videos from my travels. My main job is really, just going to beautiful places and listening to plants and sharing that with the world and just spreading love. So, follow us over there at Plantwave, and yeah, and share it with your friends. It's just listen.
You've made a believer out of me. I will head right over and I'll plug links to all your stuff in the description of this episode.
Oh, cool.
And I could use a photograph if you have one.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah, I got one.
Great.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much, Joe.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. And yeah, I just really appreciate the work you're doing and like highlighting, this kind of work. And I feel your connection to plants as well. Like just like like you're doing it. You're living it. And I just really appreciate the bravery to go there. And just to build your life around this. So that's beautiful.
Likewise, man. All right. Joe
Awesome.
Patitucci, everyone of Plant Wave. If everyone could please like, review, and subscribe to the podcast and hit that share button, we would both appreciate that greatly. Okay, bye.